Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of his ship, the UTS Defiance, watching the strange blue glow coming from the planet below. His crew had been on Kepler 442c for 3 days now, and they had found something that made no sense. "Captain, you need to see this," called Dr. Lisa Grant from her station. She was the ship's expert on alien life and cultures. Her face looked worried as she stared at her computer screen. Jake walked over to her. "What is it, Lisa?" "This artifact we found yesterday. I finished running tests on it. Captain, this thing is over 3,000 years old, and it doesn't belong to any species we know." Jake looked at the pictures on her screen. The artifact was a black metal cube covered in strange symbols. It was about the size of a desk and gave off a soft blue light. Could it be from the Zilani? Or maybe the Korath, Jake asked, naming 2 alien species that humans traded with. "No, sir, the metal is something I've never seen before. And these symbols? They match records from old Galactic Council archives. Captain, I think this belongs to the Vorthak." The name made everyone on the bridge go quiet. Even Jake felt a chill run down his back. Every child in human space knew stories about the Vorthak Empire. They were the monsters from old tales. The evil aliens who had conquered half the galaxy before vanishing without a trace. "The Vorthak are gone, Lisa. They disappeared thousands of years ago," Jake said. But his voice wasn't as sure as his words. "That's what everyone thought," Lisa replied. "But what if they didn't disappear? What if they just went somewhere else and waited?" Before Jake could answer, Chief Engineer Kate Sullivan's voice came over the comm system. "Captain, we have a problem down here. That artifact thing just turned on by itself." Jake and Lisa ran to the transport room. They beamed down to the planet's surface where the rest of the team was working. The artifact was now glowing much brighter than before, and it was making a low humming sound. "When did this start?" Jake asked. Kate wiped sweat from her face. "About 10 minutes ago. It just came alive all by itself. The energy readings are off the charts." Commander Ryan Blake, Jake's second in command, was scanning the artifact with his equipment. "Captain, this thing is sending some kind of signal. It's going out in all directions, and it's strong enough to reach other star systems. Can we shut it off?" Jake asked. "I tried everything," Kate said. "Nothing works. It's like it has its own power source that we can't touch." The humming sound got louder. Then, suddenly, it stopped. The blue glow faded, and the artifact went dark. "Is it over?" Lisa asked. Ryan checked his scanner again. "The signal stopped, but Captain, that message went out for almost 15 minutes. If anyone was listening, they heard it." Jake felt a bad feeling in his stomach. How long would it take for that signal to reach other systems? "The nearest system?" "About 6 hours at light speed," Ryan answered. Jake made a decision. "Pack everything up. We're leaving. Now." It took them 2 hours to get everything back to the ship. As the Defiance left the planet's atmosphere, Jake hoped they were being too careful. Maybe the artifact was just some old piece of junk that didn't matter anymore. He was wrong. 3 days later, Jake was in his quarters reading reports when alarms started going off all over the ship. He ran to the bridge to find his crew staring at the main screen in shock. "Report," he ordered. "Captain, we're getting emergency broadcasts from all over human space," Ryan said. His voice was shaking. "The colonies at New Shanghai, Riverside, and Hope's End, they're gone." "Gone? What? Do you mean gone?" Lisa turned from her station, tears in her eyes. "Destroyed, Captain. Completely destroyed. The broadcasts show huge alien ships attacking the colonies. The ships match old descriptions of Vorthak vessels." Jake felt the world spinning around him. "How many people?" 2 million, sir," Ryan whispered. 2 million dead in less than 6 hours. The bridge was silent except for the sound of incoming messages. Jake listened to the reports coming in from across human space. Alien ships had appeared near every major human colony. They came out of nowhere like they had been hiding in space itself. The ships were massive, bigger than anything humans had ever built. They were black as space and covered in the same symbols that had been on the artifact. When human colonies tried to talk to them, the aliens responded with weapons fire. Captain, Ryan said. We're getting a message from Earth Command. Jake nodded. Put it on screen. Admiral Helen Carter appeared on the main display. She looked tired and angry. This is Admiral Carter speaking to all human ships and colonies. As of today, humanity is at war with the Vorthak Empire. They have returned after 3,000 years, and they consider our expansion into space as an invasion of their territory. The Admiral paused, looking directly into the camera. The Galactic Cooperation Council met an emergency session 1 hour ago. They have decided to surrender humanity to the Vorthak to save themselves. We are now alone in this fight. Jake felt anger burning in his chest. The alien species that humans had helped and traded with for decades were abandoning them at the first sign of trouble. All human military ships are ordered to return to Earth immediately, the Admiral continued. We are recalling every vessel to prepare our defense. This is not a drill. This is war. The message ended, leaving Jake's bridge in silence. His crew looked scared and angry. 3 days ago, they had been exploring new worlds and making scientific discoveries. Now they were the last generation of free humans. Jake looked at his crew, his friends, and made a decision that would define the rest of his life. Kate, how are our weapons? He asked. We only have basic defensive systems, Captain. We're an exploration ship, not a warship. Can you make them better? Kate's eyes lit up with understanding. Give me a few days and some raw materials, and I can make this ship dangerous. Do it, Jake ordered. Then he turned to Ryan. Set course for Earth. Maximum speed. Yes, sir, Ryan replied. As the Defiance jumped to faster than light speed, Jake stood looking at the stars. Somewhere out there, an enemy that had conquered hundreds of worlds was coming for humanity. They expected humans to surrender like all the other species had done. Jake smiled grimly. They want to unleash hell on us, he said to himself. Well, they're about to learn what hell really looks like when humans fight back. Admiral Helen Carter stood in the command center on Earth, watching dozens of screens showing the same terrible news. More human colonies were under attack, and the Vorthak ships kept coming. In just 1 week, they had destroyed 8 colonies and taken prisoners from 6 others. Admiral, the Galactic Council is calling again, said her aide, Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez. Helen shook her head. Tell them what I told them yesterday. Humanity will not surrender. The Galactic Cooperation Council had been calling every day since the attacks began. They wanted to arrange humanity's surrender to the Vorthak. The other alien species were terrified and thought giving up the humans would save their own worlds. Ma'am, they say the Vorthak have given us an ultimatum, Sam continued. We have 72 hours to surrender completely, or they will destroy every human world. Helen turned to look at Colonel Ben Hayes, who was standing nearby studying battle reports. Ben was in charge of the Colonial Marines, the toughest human soldiers in space. What do you think, Ben? Should we surrender? Helen asked. Ben looked up from his papers and grinned. It was not a nice grin. Admiral, my Marines have been training for real combat their whole lives. Most of them joined up hoping for a chance to fight something more dangerous than space pirates. I'd say this is exactly what we've been waiting for. Even against impossible odds? Especially against impossible odds, Ben replied. That's when humans fight best. Dr. Alex Turner entered the command center carrying a tablet full of data. Alex was humanity's best weapons expert, and he had been working non-stop since the attacks began. Admiral, I have good news and bad news, Alex said. Give me the bad news first, Helen replied. The Vorthak have better shields, faster ships, and more powerful weapons than us. In a straight fight, they outclass us completely. And the good news, Alex smiled. Their technology is designed to fight other civilized species. All the aliens in the galaxy use energy weapons, lasers, plasma beams, particle cannons. The Vorthak shields are built to stop those weapons. So humans still use kinetic weapons, bullets, missiles, railguns, things that physically hit the target instead of just shooting energy at it. Alex pulled up a diagram on the main screen. Look at this. I analyzed the wreckage from the colony attacks. Their shields barely slow down physical projectiles. Colonel, Hayes leaned forward. You're saying we can hurt them? I'm saying we can kill them, Alex answered. We just have to fight them the human way instead of trying to copy alien tactics. Before anyone could respond, alarms started going off. Sam rushed to her communication station. Admiral, we're getting a broadcast from the Vorthak. It's being sent to every human world and ship. Put it on the main screen, Helen ordered. The screen showed a creature that looked like a cross between a human and a lizard. It was tall and covered in dark scales, with glowing red eyes. When it spoke, its voice was deep and cold. I am War. Commander Thaxon of the Vorthak Empire. Your species has invaded our territory and must be punished. To show you the consequences of defying us, watch what happens to those we have already captured. The image changed to show human prisoners from the destroyed colonies. Men, women, and children were locked in cages on what looked like a Vorthak ship. Helen recognized some of the faces from colony records. What happened next made everyone in the command center feel sick. The Vorthak began torturing and killing the prisoners one by one, while broadcasting it to every human in the galaxy. They wanted to break human spirit and force a surrender. The broadcast lasted 30 minutes. When it ended, the lizard creature appeared again. This is the fate of all humans who resist us. You have 72 hours to surrender your entire species to slavery. If you refuse, we will hunt down every human in existence and kill them slowly. The screen went dark. Helen's command center was completely quiet. She could see anger and horror on every face around her. Some of her staff were crying. Others looked ready to fight with their bare hands. Admiral, Sam said quietly. Earth government is calling. They want to discuss surrender terms. Helen felt rage building inside her chest. No. Ma'am, I said no. We will not surrender. Helen turned to address everyone in the room. The Vorthak just made their biggest mistake. They think showing us cruelty will make us afraid. Instead, they just showed every human in the galaxy exactly why we need to destroy them. Colonel Hayes nodded. What are your orders, Admiral? Contact every human ship, station, and colony. Tell them to prepare for total war. Every civilian transport becomes a troop carrier. Every mining ship becomes a weapons platform. Every human, with military training reports for duty immediately. The government won't like that, Sam warned. The government can negotiate with politicians, Helen replied. I negotiate with enemies who torture children. Over the next 3 days, something amazing happened across human space. Instead of breaking humanity's will, the Vorthak broadcast had the opposite effect. Humans who had never agreed on anything suddenly worked together with one goal: destroy the enemy. Retired military officers came out of retirement. Civilian engineers volunteered to modify ships for combat. Colonies that had been arguing over trade disputes started sharing resources freely. Dr. Turner's weapons teams worked around the clock, retrofitting human ships with railguns and missile launchers. The weapons were simple compared to alien energy beams, but they were deadly against Vorthak shields. Captain Jake Morrison's ship, the Defiance, arrived at Earth just as the 72-hour deadline approached. Jake reported to Admiral Carter immediately. Captain, I'm promoting you to Commodore. You're now in charge of the 3rd Exploration Fleet, Helen told him. We don't have a 3rd Exploration Fleet, Jake pointed out. We do now. 12 exploration ships, all retrofitted for combat. Your job is to hit Vorthak supply lines and communication relays. Make them hurt. Jake grinned. Finally, a mission I understand. As the deadline approached, human leaders gathered in the command center. The civilian government wanted to send one last message to the Vorthak, offering to negotiate. Helen refused. The time for talking is over. They showed us who they are. Now we show them who we are. With 1 hour left before the Vorthak deadline, every human military commander received the same message. It was simple and direct. This is Admiral Carter. The enemy wanted to unleash hell on humanity. Message received. Beginning immediately, we will show them what hell looks like when humans are angry. All ships, all stations, all colonies. You are authorized to engage the enemy with extreme prejudice. Make them regret ever hearing the word human. The 72-hour deadline came and went. Instead of surrendering, Humans across the galaxy sent the same response to every Vorthak ship they could find. It wasn't a message of surrender or negotiation. It was much simpler than that. You wanted hell? Welcome to Earth. The war that followed would be unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Vorthak Empire faced an enemy that got stronger when attacked, instead of weaker. They were about to learn why humans were the only species in the galaxy that had turned warfare into an art form. Sergeant Tony Martinez crouched behind a broken wall on the colony world of New Geneva, watching Vorthak soldiers patrol the street below. The aliens had taken the planet 2 weeks ago, expecting easy control over the human population. They were learning that controlling humans was much harder than killing them. Tony spoke quietly into his radio. "Snake Team, this is Viper. I count 6 lizards moving toward the supply depot. Are you in position?" "Viper, this is Snake 1, came the reply from Corporal Lisa Park. "We're ready. Just give us the word." Tony smiled grimly. The Vorthak thought they were hunting a broken human resistance. They didn't realize they were walking into a trap designed by soldiers who had studied every human war in history. All teams, execute in 3, 2, 1, now. The attack lasted exactly 90 seconds. Human fighters appeared from sewers, rooftops, and hidden bunkers. They hit the Vorthak patrol with grenades, sniper fire, and small rockets. Before the aliens could respond, the humans disappeared back into hiding. 6 Vorthak soldiers were dead. 0 humans were even wounded. "Beautiful work," Tony said into his radio. "Pack up and move to Safe House 7. We hit their communication relay in 4 hours." This was the new reality across every world the Vorthak had captured. They controlled the cities during the day, but at night the humans came out to fight. The aliens had never faced an enemy like this before. In space, things were going just as badly for the Vorthak Empire. Captain Diana Ross commanded the human ship Barracuda, which had once been a deep space research vessel. Now it was something much more dangerous. Her ship hid in asteroid fields and nebula clouds, striking at Vorthak supply convoys when they least expected it. "Captain, we have 3 enemy ships approaching from the Kepler system," reported her navigator, Lieutenant Jim Walsh. "How many escort ships?" Diana asked. 2 heavy cruisers and 4 fighters. Diana studied the tactical display. The Vorthak convoy was carrying supplies to their forces attacking human colonies. Destroying it would save human lives and hurt them. Enemy war effort. "Here's what we're going to do," Diana said. "We're going to let them see us." Her crew looked confused. Jim spoke up. "Captain, they outgun us 10 to 1. "That's exactly what I'm counting on," Diana replied with a grin. The Barracuda moved out of the asteroid field, deliberately showing itself to the Vorthak ships. As expected, the enemy immediately changed course to attack what looked like a lone human vessel. "All ships pursue the human ship," came the Vorthak commander's voice over intercepted communications. Finally, an easy kill. Diana's ship ran toward a nearby nebula with the Vorthak convoy chasing after her. The aliens thought they were hunting frightened prey. They were actually being led into an ambush. Hidden in the nebula were 6 more human ships, all armed with the new railgun weapons that could punch through Vorthak shields. When the enemy ships entered the cloud, they found themselves surrounded. The battle was over in minutes. 3 Vorthak supply ships and their escorts were destroyed. The humans lost no ships and only suffered minor damage. "That's how you fight a submarine war in space," Diana told her crew as they disappeared back into the nebula. These tactics were being used across human space. Instead of fighting the massive Vorthak battle fleets directly, human forces attacked supply lines, isolated patrols and communication networks. They struck fast and disappeared before the enemy could respond. General Mike Thompson was coordinating the ground war from a hidden base on Earth. He had reports coming in from every occupied world, and they all told the same story. The Vorthak don't understand guerrilla warfare, he explained to his staff. Every species they've conquered before fought them in open battles. Big fleets against big fleets. Army against army. They win those fights because they have better technology. "So we don't give them that kind of fight," said his aide, Captain Rick Davis. "Exactly. We make them fight our way. Human way. We use the tactics we learned in every war we've ever fought. Ambushes, traps, hit-and-run attacks. Make them afraid to leave their bases. The strategy was working. Intercepted Vorthak communications showed growing frustration among their commanders. They were used to enemies who either surrendered quickly or died quickly. Humans did neither. Commander Ryan, Blake, now serving as Admiral Carter's intelligence chief, had been studying captured Vorthak equipment and prisoners. What he found was both encouraging and terrifying. Admiral, the Vorthak have conquered over 400 different species in their history, Ryan reported. Every single one followed the same pattern. The enemy would resist for a few weeks or months, then their will would break and they would surrender. And, Admiral Carter asked, and none of them ever developed real military tactics. They just had bigger ships and better weapons. When the Vorthak showed up with even bigger ships, the other species had no idea how to adapt. What about us? Ryan smiled. We're different. Humans have been fighting wars for thousands of years, not to conquer territory, but to defend ideas. We've had to get creative because we've always been fighting someone with better equipment or more soldiers. This difference was becoming clear to Vorthak commanders across the galaxy. Their reports to the High Command painted a picture of an enemy unlike any they had faced before. The humans do not fight with honor, complained one Vorthak general. They hide in shadows and strike from behind. They attack our supply lines instead of our armies. They rescue their prisoners and then use the intelligence to attack us again. They use nuclear weapons against our ground forces, reported another. They fill buildings with explosives and detonate them when our troops are inside. They have no respect for the proper rules of warfare. What the Vorthak didn't understand was that humans had never learned proper rules of warfare. Every human war in history had been about survival, not honor. When survival was at stake, humans used whatever tactics worked. The war had been going on for 6 months when the first major human victory occurred. Commodore Jake Morrison's 3rd Exploration Fleet had been attacking Vorthak supply lines throughout the sector. His ships had become legends among both human and alien forces. Commodore, we've got intelligence on a big target, reported Commander Laura King, who had joined his fleet after her own ship was destroyed in the early fighting. What kind of target? Jake asked. A Vorthak command ship. It's coordinating attacks on 3 human colonies and it's carrying over 10,000 human prisoners. Jake studied the tactical data. The command ship was huge and well defended. A direct assault would be suicide. But Jake had learned something about warfare that the Vorthak never had. Sometimes the impossible plan was the only one that worked. Laura, how do you feel about a boarding action? He asked. She grinned. Finally, something exciting. The attack on the Vorthak command ship would become known as the Battle of Wolf 359. It was the first time humans had captured a major enemy vessel, and it changed everything. But that victory would come with a cost that no one expected, and it would force humanity to face a terrible question. How far were they willing to go to win this war? The boarding action against the Vorthak command ship began at 300 hours. Commander Laura King led 50 human Marines through the ship's cargo bay doors, while Commodore Jake Morrison's fleet kept the enemy escorts busy outside. Move fast, stay quiet, and remember the mission, Laura whispered into her comm as her team spread through the alien ship's corridors. The Vorthak had never faced human boarding tactics before. They expected enemies to attack the bridge or the engine room. Instead, Laura's team went straight for the prison levels to free the human captives. The aliens guarding the prisoners were caught completely off guard. Most of them had never seen humans fight up close. They were used to energy weapons that fired in straight lines. Human soldiers used shotguns, grenades, and combat knives that worked in close quarters. Prisoner bay secured, reported Sergeant Bill Murphy over the radio. We've got over 8,000 humans down here, sir. Some of them are in bad shape. Laura felt anger burning in her chest as she saw what the Vorthak had done to the prisoners. But she pushed the emotion aside. There would be time for revenge later. Get them to the transport ships, she ordered. We've got 20 minutes before their reinforcements arrive. While Laura's team freed the prisoners, Captain Rick Davis led another squad toward the ship's computer center. The information on that ship could change the entire war. Rick had fought in 3 different colonial conflicts before the Vorthak invasion. He knew that intelligence was often more valuable than weapons. The databanks on this command ship contained the locations of every Vorthak base, supply depot, and prison world in the sector. Computer center secured, Rick reported. Beginning data download now. The download took 18 minutes. When it finished, Rick's team had the complete battle plans for the Vorthak offensive, including the locations of prison worlds holding millions of captured humans and aliens. All teams extraction in 60 seconds. Jake's voice came over the radio. Enemy reinforcements are jumping in. Laura's team got the last prisoners onto transport ships, just as Vorthak's security forces reached the prison level. The human Marines fought a running battle through the ship's corridors, covering the evacuation of the rescued captives. They made it out with 58 seconds to spare. The Battle of Wolf 359 was a complete human victory. The Vorthak lost a command ship, 8,000 prisoners were freed, and humanity gained intelligence that would guide their strategy for months to come. But the real victory was psychological. For the first time since the war began, humans had proven they could take on the Vorthak directly and win. Admiral Helen Carter was in her command center when the news arrived. She watched the video reports of freed prisoners returning to human space, and for the first time in months, she allowed herself to smile. "Admiral, we're getting reports from across the sector," Lieutenant Sam Rodriguez announced. "Human resistance. Groups on occupied worlds are launching major attacks. It's like the whole galaxy heard about Wolf 359. "Good," Helen replied. "Now we show them this was just the beginning." Dr. Alex Turner entered the command center carrying a datapad filled with information from the captured Vorthak ship. What he had discovered would change everything. "Admiral, you need to see this," Alex said. "The computer files from that command ship. They show prison worlds throughout Vorthak space. Hundreds of them. There are over 50 million captured, beings from dozens of different species." Helen studied the data. "How many humans?" "About 12 million, Alex answered. "But that's not the most important part. Admiral, some of these prison worlds have been operating for over 1,000 years. The Vorthak have been doing this to species across the galaxy for centuries." Colonel Ben Hayes, who had been listening to the report, spoke up. "They're not just conquerors. They're slavers on a galactic scale." Helen felt a cold certainty settle in her mind. This war wasn't just about human survival anymore. It was about stopping an evil that had been destroying civilizations for millennia. "Alex, how long would it take to plan coordinated strikes on these prison worlds?" she asked. "If we use everything we learned from Wolf 359? "About 3 months to plan and position our forces." "Do it," Helen ordered. "We're going to free every prisoner in Vorthak space." The operation that followed was called Liberation Day, and it was the largest military action in human history. Admiral Chris Johnson commanded the space forces while General Susan Lee coordinated ground operations across 50 different worlds. The attacks began simultaneously across 1,000 light-years of space. Human ships appeared at prison worlds that had been forgotten by the galaxy for centuries. The Vorthak garrison forces, used to guarding helpless prisoners, suddenly faced determined human Marines armed with weapons designed to punch through their defenses. On the prison world Tartarus 7, Captain Diana Ross led the assault on a facility holding 500,000 beings from 30 different species. Her ship, the Barracuda, had been upgraded with the latest human weapons technology. "Enemy shields are down," reported her weapons officer. "We have clear shots at their defensive positions." "Take them out," Diana ordered, "but watch for prisoners in the compound." The battle for Tartarus 7 lasted 6 hours. When it ended, the prison was in human hands and 486,000 beings were free for the first time in decades or centuries. Similar scenes played out across 50 worlds. Species that had been enslaved for generations suddenly found themselves liberated by humans they had never heard of before. The psychological impact on the Vorthak Empire was devastating. For the first time in their history, they were losing territory instead of gaining it. Their prison system, which had been a source of wealth and power for millennia, was collapsing. But Liberation Day had an even more important effect. The freed prisoners spread word throughout the galaxy that the mighty Vorthak could be defeated. Species that had surrendered at the first sign of Vorthak ships began to hope that resistance was possible. On Earth, Admiral Carter received a message that changed the war completely. It came from the Zilani Republic, one of the alien species that had abandoned humanity when the Vorthak returned. "Admiral Carter," said the Zilani ambassador on the screen, "my government wishes to apologize for our previous decision. We would like to discuss joining your alliance against the Vorthak Empire." Helen looked at the alien diplomat she had once considered a friend. "What changed your mind?" she asked. "You freed our people from Vorthak prison worlds. 300,000 Zilani who we thought were dead forever. How could we not help the species that gave them back to us?" Within weeks, the Free Species Alliance was formed. The Korath, the Miran Collective, and 6 other species joined humanity in the fight against the Vorthak Empire. For the first time in galactic history, multiple species were working together not for trade or diplomacy but for war. The Vorthak High Command, faced with their first major defeats in 3,000 years, made a desperate decision. They would end the war by destroying the human homeworld. War Commander Thaxon assembled the largest battle fleet in Vorthak history. Over 200 ships, including their most powerful dreadnoughts, began the journey to Earth. "The humans think they have won because they freed some prisoners," Thaxon told his subordinates. "We will show them what real power looks like. When Earth is nothing but radioactive dust, the other species will remember why they fear us." But Thaxon made the same mistake that every enemy of humanity had made throughout history. He assumed that attacking Earth would break human will to fight. Instead, it did the opposite. When news reached human forces that a massive Vorthak fleet was heading for Earth, the response was immediate and unanimous. Every human ship, station, and colony sent the same message: "We're coming home." The final battle of the war was about to begin. War Commander Thaxon stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching Earth grow larger on the main screen. His fleet of 200 ships was the most powerful force the Vorthak had assembled in over 1,000 years. Soon, the human homeworld would be nothing but burning ruins. "Commander, we are detecting massive energy signatures from behind the planet," reported his tactical officer. "Probably their defense platforms," Thaxon replied. "It won't matter. We have enough firepower to crack a planet." But when the human fleet emerged from behind Earth, even Thaxon felt a moment of uncertainty. There were over 400 ships waiting for them, and they weren't all human vessels. He could see Zilani cruisers, Korath battleships, and fighters from a dozen different species. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the lead human ship," his communications officer announced. "Put it on screen," Thaxon ordered. Admiral Jake Morrison appeared on the display. He had been promoted after his success at Wolf 359, and now commanded the entire human fleet. Behind him, Thaxon could see the bridge of a human dreadnought bristling with weapons. "War Commander Thaxon," Jake said calmly, "I'm Admiral Morrison of the Terran Defense Force. You're in violation of Earth space. Withdraw immediately, or we will destroy your fleet." Thaxon laughed. "You think your pathetic alliance can stop the might of the Vorthak Empire? We have been conquering worlds since before your species learned to make fire." "Maybe," Jake replied, "but you've never fought humans before. Last chance to withdraw." "Never," Thaxon snarled. "Today, humanity dies." Dikiu. Battle of Earth began with the largest space combat in galactic history. 2 fleets containing over 600 ships opened fire on each other across the orbit of humanity's homeworld. The Vorthak had superior technology and more experience. But the human alliance had something the Vorthak had never encountered: coordinated tactics developed by species fighting for their survival rather than conquest. Human ships used their submarine warfare techniques, striking from unexpected angles and disappearing into asteroid fields. Zilani vessels, with their superior speed, conducted hit-and-run attacks on Vorthak flanks. Korath battleships, built like flying fortresses, absorbed enemy fire while smaller ships maneuvered for killing shots. For the first time in their history, the Vorthak found themselves outmaneuvered in space combat. "Sir, we've lost 30 ships," Thaxon's tactical officer reported. "The humans are using tactics we've never seen before." "Impossible," Thaxon replied. We are the masters of war. Commander, perhaps we should consider withdrawal, suggested his second-in-command. Thaxon turned on his subordinate in rage. The Vorthak Empire does not retreat. Continue the attack. But as the battle continued, it became clear that the Vorthak fleet was losing. Human alliance tactics were designed by species that had learned warfare through necessity, not superiority. They fought smarter, not just harder. After 6 hours of combat, Thaxon's fleet was down to fewer than 100 ships. The human alliance had lost ships too, but they were still a fighting force. Sir, urgent message from the Vorthak homeworld, his communications officer announced. The message was from the Vorthak High Council, and it contained news that changed everything. Human forces had attacked the Vorthak homeworld itself. General Susan Lee was leading the largest ground invasion in human history, fighting to liberate the billions of slaves held on the Vorthak capital planet. How is this possible? Thaxon demanded. His intelligence chief pulled up tactical displays. Sir, while we were attacking Earth, the humans sent their entire ground army to our homeworld. They're using the same liberation tactics that worked on the prison worlds. Thaxon felt the certainty of victory slipping away. His fleet was losing the battle for Earth, and his homeworld was under attack. For the first time in 3,000 years, the Vorthak Empire was fighting for its survival. Commander, Admiral Morrison is requesting to speak with you again, his communications officer announced. Put him through, Thaxon ordered. Jake Morrison appeared on screen, but this time he wasn't alone. Standing behind him was Dr. Lisa Grant, the human scientist who had first discovered the Vorthak artifact. Commander Thaxon, Jake said, I have a proposal for you. Humans do not dictate terms to the Vorthak, Thaxon replied, but his voice lacked its earlier confidence. Actually, we do, Jake said calmly. Your fleet is beaten, your homeworld is under attack, and your empire is crumbling. But I'm not calling to gloat. I'm calling to offer you something your people have never had before. What could humans possibly offer us? A choice, Dr. Grant said, stepping forward. Commander, we've studied your history. Your people have been conquerors for so long that you've forgotten there are other ways to live. You could have a different future. Thaxon stared at the humans on his screen. In all his years of warfare, no enemy had ever offered him anything except death or surrender. What kind of choice? He asked. End this war, Jake said. Order your forces to stop fighting, and we'll help you build something better than an empire, based on slavery and conquest. Your people could be part of the galactic community instead of its greatest threat. And if I refuse? Jake's expression grew hard. Then we'll destroy your fleet, liberate your homeworld, and hunt down every Vorthak ship in the galaxy until your empire is nothing but a memory. Thaxon considered his options. He could continue fighting and watch his people be destroyed, or he could accept this impossible offer from the species he had tried to exterminate. It was Dr. Grant who made the decision for him. Commander, would you accept a personal combat between you and Admiral Morrison? Single combat to determine the outcome of this war? It would save millions of lives on both sides. Thaxon felt a spark of interest. Single combat was an ancient Vorthak tradition, one that his people still respected. If the human defeats me, he asked, the war ends. Your people lay down their weapons and join the galactic community as equals, not conquerors. Jake replied, and if I defeat you, then humanity surrenders, and you can finish what you started. Thaxon looked around his bridge at the faces of his crew. They had been soldiers their entire lives, but he could see doubt in their eyes. Maybe it was time for something different. Very well, Thaxon said. I accept your challenge. The single combat took place on a neutral space station, with representatives from both fleets watching. It wasn't just a fight between two individuals. It was a battle between two completely different ways of looking at the universe. The combat lasted an hour. Both fighters were skilled and determined. But in the end, Jake Morrison's victory came not from superior strength, but from fighting for something greater than personal glory. As Thaxon lay defeated but alive, Jake extended his hand to help the Vorthak commander to his feet. Your empire is finished, Jake said. But your people don't have to be. Help us build something better. Thaxon looked at the offered hand for a long moment. Then, for the first time in his life, he accepted help from someone he had considered an enemy. The war that had threatened to destroy humanity ended not with the destruction of the Vorthak, but with their transformation. Some Vorthak hardliners fled to unknown regions of space, but most chose to join the growing alliance of free species. 6 months later, Jake Morrison stood on the observation deck of a new space station orbiting Earth. The station was a joint project between humans, Zelani, Korath, and reformed Vorthak, serving as headquarters for the Free Species Alliance. Dr. Lisa Grant joined him at the viewport, looking out at ships from a dozen different species working together in space. "Do you ever miss the excitement of the war?" she asked. Jake smiled and pointed to a star chart showing unexplored regions beyond the galactic rim. "Lisa, there's a whole universe out there we haven't explored yet. Who knows what we'll find, what new friends we'll make, what new challenges we'll face." He paused, watching a mixed crew of humans and former enemies working together on a new exploration ship. "Besides," Jake continued, "we didn't fight that war to prove we were the toughest species in the galaxy. We fought it to protect what makes us human, the belief that everyone deserves a chance to be free." Lisa nodded, understanding. The war had ended, but humanity's greatest adventure was just beginning. Somewhere in the vast darkness of space, new worlds waited to be discovered, new civilizations waited to be met, and new challenges waited to test the bonds between species who had learned to work together instead of fight each other. The Vorthak had unleashed hell, expecting humanity to break. Instead, humans had responded by building something better than an empire, a community of free beings working together toward a future none of them could achieve alone. And that, Jake reflected, was the most human response of all.